All right, very good. So everyone sees the my browser. Give me a thumbs up if you do.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you. Good morning for those in the Pacific time and afternoon on those on other time zones. My name is Oscar Peña, and I am the tech support for CASAS. I also have Janice Farah with me. Janice, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Janice Farah. I'm based in Sacramento. I've been with CASAS for over a year, and I help out with what Jay Wright does in terms of organizing and teaching accountability here in California. And I enjoy working with Oscar and Don Montgomery, the training team, in delivering the modules and training such as this TOPSpro Enterprise Basics today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janice. So as you know, this will be the TE Basics training. We're going to be addressing, the basic content, but you are welcome to address any other areas given the time, of course. Now, if you have any questions, one, I would ask if you can present the question in a general form. Let's say, for example, if this question will be regarding importing your data from a specific third-party import system, do not mention the system, do not mention ASAP, do not mention, any other system you use. Just go ahead and refer to it as your third-party registration, so that everybody could relate with that question. You are also, I also ask if you can go ahead and put the question in a form of, in the chat, and Janice is going to go ahead and address as many questions as possible, and anything else that has to be addressed during the training, Janice is going to, I would ask for Janice to, please interrupt and present the questions. All right? Can I get a thumbs up?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much, guys. All right, so the content we're going to cover will be under the CASAS website. Let me go ahead and show you over here. This will be the activity package TE Basics, and it's quick start. So let me go ahead and show you from the home page. We're going to go to training and support. So again, the homepage for CASAS, it's www.casas.org. Once you get there, you're going to go ahead and click on Training and Support on the top menu. And then we're going to click on eTest Online Help on the side menu. And we're going to scroll down to TOPSpro Enterprise Basics. And within that, you should see the TOPSpro Enterprise Basics Quick Start Package. So this is a PDF. It contains, I will say, let's see, I have a printout over here. It contains about 36 pages. 36 pages. So it's best to just save it as a PDF to your computer. You can use that as a reference. We're not going to follow page by page, but that's the content that we're going to be covering. All right. And if you have any questions after the training and for any follow-ups, let me go ahead and share the tech support contact. So our tech support contact is techsupport@casas.org. So again, that will be under the CASAS website. You will click on Contact Us on the top menu, and here is our tech support email. And here's our number. So our email is techsupport@casas.org, and our number is 1-800-255-1036, option 2. We're open from 6 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon Pacific time, Monday through Friday. For this coming week, as you know, this is a holiday week. We're going to be open from Monday through Wednesday. All right? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The very first thing one needs in order to use TE is to install TE. The software TE stands for TOPSpro Enterprise. So how do you install the software? You are to go to the eTest website. The eTest website is etestonline.org. Now, CASAS has multiple servers depending on what state you are in. So, for example, California has its own server, Washington has its own server, Miami-Dade has its own server, and so forth. If you do not have any server that has been assigned, for the state, for example, you will use the global server. So that will be just etestonline, .org. So for the purpose of this training, I'm going to use our Rolling Hills simulation server, which is a database that has been set in a simulation server. So this is an additional server, and this is for practice only. It is very good for you guys to use this server, because this server, anything that you do under this server will go ahead and delete overnight. So there is no harm of, by deleting information, adding anything you do, it's set overnight. It's reset overnight, I should say. All right, so the website for that is etestonline.org, and the specific server we're going to be using, which is our simulation server, is Rolling Hills, and you don't have to enter HTML5. The system will go ahead and enter that for you, as long as you enter etestonline.org/Rolling Hills. All right, so in here.
Oscar, can I just interrupt you for a second while everyone's getting situated there? Two things. One is in the waiting room. I think maybe it would be easier perhaps if you set me as a co-host. That way I can admit people that are late arrivals. I just got a couple tips that we could do. So if you go to participants and you set me as a co-host, then I'll deal with the waiting room for you so you can concentrate. And there was also, I think, a question about where is the link to the user guide? And I see someone's put that in the chat. There was also a question about the link that you were referring to on CASAS.org for the PDF to download. Well, if you have a chance, if you could do that, that would be superb.
Very well, I will do. So user guide and the document we're gonna follow, it's the same. So let me go ahead and put that in the chat room. Thank you very much for addressing that question. Let me go to the chat. All right, so here, all right, very good. So let's see about this package. Documentation. All right, very good. So e-test basics, CE basics, I'm sorry, quick start. Documentation.
Thanks, Oscar. I appreciate that.
No problem. All right, so there is the link right there. Again, we're gonna follow the content. It's not gonna be page by page, but we're gonna be following the content, and I will refer to the page that I'm on, as I'm going through the training. All right. All right. So to go back to our page over here. So this is the e-test website. As you might know, when you sign up with CASAS, you get two applications. One is your data managing application, that is TOPSpro Enterprise. This is where you enter your users' accounts for those users who are going to be using TE, where you generate reports for internal purposes, say instructors, or for data submission to the state or so forth. All the administrative, tasks are to be done under TOPSpro Enterprise. In addition to that, you get the application of eTest Online. This is what we're looking at on the screen right now. eTest Online is for testing. This is for electronic testing. So here you can do remote testing, you can do on-site testing. So that's basically the purpose for this. In addition to that, under the eTest Online website, you can go ahead and click on the link on the button on the upper left that says Install TE Client. That is to install TE. Okay, and just to confirm, Janice, we are recording, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. All right, so for those of you who do not have TE installed, this is where you install it. For the purpose of this training, you do not have to install it. You can just look at my screen, and this will be a show and tell type of training. All right, but for your reference, this is where you install TE. Now, once you install TE, you're going to be presented with a screen just like this. This is your login screen. notice that under this screen, you have the different servers that, CASAS has. So Rolling Hills is the one that we're going to be using. Again, this is our simulation database. You have the global, you have California, and you have other servers that we have assigned. Again, if you don't have a server for your state, you just go ahead and choose the global. All right, if you're California, then go ahead and choose that. But otherwise, you choose the global server. So under my Rolling Hills login, information here, I'm going to use the following login for the agency ID, 4908. 4908 is basically the fictitious agency ID that has been set for Rolling Hills. All right. So if you are following the package, I'm currently on page 3 right now. Page 3.
I don't understand where I'm supposed to find the package and load the package so that I can follow it. I'm a real computer doofus.
No problem, Alan. Thank you for addressing the question. So if you are to look on your chat, under your chat, you should have a
okay.
You should have the TE Basics link. It says TE Basic Quick Start Documentation. So click on that link, and that will take you to the PDF document. Do you see the chat?
I see that I'm in chat. TE.
Let me go ahead and put it one more time so you see it on the bottom, okay? Oh, there you go. Janice, Nicole just went ahead and put it for us. Thank you, Nicole.
So what am I supposed to click on?
So you scroll all the way to the bottom, Alan, and you should see a link from Nicole Jordan, and it says Quick Start Package.
Quick Start Package and Basics. And I see something called Default Source Institute Enterprise Basic Quick Start PDF.
Yes. So I just click on the link itself, and you should see this package you're seeing on my screen right now. That's the first page.
Okay. But I no longer see you. Hello.
Can you see the screen, Alan?
I can see the screen with activity packet, but I can't see any of the participants.
It might just be that it's a internet, it's just catching up.
I have shifted.
Janice, can you?
I have shifted out of my Google and into Safari. I don't understand.
Janice, can you assist Alan?
Yeah, Alan, I'm just going to take this offline 1 second. I'm replying to another question. I'll be right there. Hang on, okay?
Okay.
All right. So Janice is going to go ahead and help you, Alan, and feel free to let us know if you need anything else, okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and turn to page 3, as we said. So under page 3, we're going to go ahead and sign in. So the login information, again, you don't have to log in yourself. This is just for you to see. This is a show and tell. All right. So the agency ID that we're going to be using is 4908. Administrator 0 at rhas.org will be my username. You can enter 0 to 50. So, any number from 0 to 50. Why? Because in order for the system to differentiate which fictitious user is the one that is connecting. All right. So I'm going to be using the user name administrator 0 at rhas.org. All right. And then password will be admin. ADMIN. All right, so once again, the credentials I'm using is Rolling Hills, 4908 for server. User will be administrator 0 at rhas.org in my case. And then password will be admin, which is ADMIN. I'm going to go ahead and click connect. All right, very good. So the very first thing you see on the screen will be your startup page. Your startup page is a way for CASAS to communicate on all the latest news. You know, there's a section for how to, most of the popular, you know, questions that users have asked, shortcuts, announcements, you know, under the announcements, you see that, you know, you see the CASAS, you know, startup page is one of the features, and you also see alerts and notifications. Let's say, for example, under alerts and notifications, you have basically the latest release that we have had. That is, you know, build 88. So that was, you know, on November 20th, Friday, November 20th. So that is up to date. So that's the latest release. And you also have CASAS News, you know, display right there. Any information that CASAS has to, you know, display is going to be contained under this, you know, startup page. All right. So we're going to go ahead and close that. We close it by clicking on the X under start page. And then we have the menu in TE. So TE works just like, you know, your web browser, in a sense that you have the menus on the top, and within those menus, you have a subcategory, which, you know, by selecting, just hovering on top of the sections, it displays, you know, any other categories that would have a an arrow. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick overview, and we'll start from the left to the right. So starting with the TE icon, notice that when I hover on top of the TE icon, it tells me the server that I'm connected to. So let's say, for example, you are calling tech support, and tech support will ask you, what agency are you calling from? What agency ID are you calling from? Then you can go ahead and just hover on top of the TE icon, and it's going to tell you that your agency ID is 4908. So if you're ever asked, what's your agency ID? Just go ahead and, you know, hover on top and provide that agency from there. We're going to go ahead and click on the TE icon now. All right, so by clicking on the TE icon, I get the option for locking, the option for disconnecting, changing password, associate accounts. We're going to go ahead and bypass. That's more of an advanced feature. And then we have options. So obviously locking is to lock your application. Disconnect is, say you are at your desk and you are stepping you know, away from your desk. You want to go ahead and disconnect so that the application is not be open and available for other users. Change password, it's going to go ahead and change your password. And options, we're going to go ahead and click on options. Under options, you have your general options for the application. And let's say, for example, you want to set the time at which your application is left open idle. So, you know, the inactive timeout interval is by default set as 30 minutes. You can go ahead and increase this or decrease this, you know, for whatever applies to you. In addition to that, we have the on start. So notice that we just talk about the on start page, which you see the news and the tips from CASAS. This is, if you do not want that to be displayed, this is where you go ahead and disable it. Those of you who are familiar with eTest and are familiar with WTUs, which stands for Web Test Units, this is where you can go ahead and CASAS will go ahead, TE will go ahead and give you a warning when you are low on your consumption, low on your reserve, I should say, of WTUs. So if you hit 500 or less, the system is going to give you a warning so that you can order additional WTUs. Again, these are for e-test, and every time you test, a WTU web test unit gets deducted. So if you want that warning to be at less than 500, you can go ahead and change this number. If you want this warning to come at a higher number than 500, you can go ahead and set that over here. I believe that the minimum that you can set it to will be 100. All right. So let's just go ahead and do a quick overview here. The way you want names to be displayed under TE and change will be, whatever caps and lower cases are entered under the name. That's how TE is going to take it. Or you can go ahead and change it to all proper or upper cases. about whatever applies to, your way of seeing those names. Listers. TE has two ways of displaying the data. One will be listers, the other one will be reports. Listers is basically like a worksheet for Excel, a spreadsheet for Excel. So it has columns, it has rows, it's, but you can edit, you can filter this information. So whereas reports is more of a presentable, report that is easier to read, and it can contain, graphics. So if these are the settings for your listers, these are your settings for your reports. The system TE is able to import and export. Import from a third-party, database that could be your attendance, and export onto the same, the third-party database. So the default, option for exporting, for example, you see is student ID. So that is the identifier for those students. That will be their student ID. Same thing with the options under import. Here are your options under import. All right, very good. So we're going to go ahead and continue. We went over imports, exports. So I'm going to go ahead and leave these two because this will be panels and dashboard. That will be, another area. So I have a question over here. Let's see. Let's see. Nick is asking, when the time comes, I have a question. Have to make a slight edit to the student ID for a large number of students, removing a dash. Okay, very good. How do I do that to everybody? So basically, you're looking to do a batch edit. Thank you. Yes, Nick, we're going to go ahead and address this. So any questions, please feel free to put it under the chat. Once we get to that section, we're going to go ahead and cover that. I would ask for Janice to please remind me if there's any questions that could be answered right away. Janice is going to do us the favor of answering that through the chat. All right. Thank you for asking the questions. All right. So we're going to move forward, and we're going to switch to view. So view, just like the name says, is basically the way, the size of the font display. So notice that as of right now, we have normal, but if we click to large, then my menu becomes larger in font. I can go ahead and switch back to normal, and it reduces in size. One thing to point out is that when you click on large, say, for example, there's less real estate on your screen. So when you have less space, there'll be less space for buttons, less space for, the different features or options for that particular page. If you do not see everything, you are to go to the more button. And we're going to get to that in the future. You're going to see that more button. TE will go ahead and assign a more button each and every time there's not enough space. And anything else that does not fit on your screen will go under the more button.
Could you repeat that last action one more time, Oscar?
Yes, the action in view. I see the question from Deborah. So if you click on view, you can go ahead and switch your text, change the size of your font to large. Once you click on the large button, keep in mind that there's less space on your screen to display any other buttons if there is the need for TE to show any other buttons. If you do not see those buttons, then you want to click on the more button, which we're going to see later on, and those options will be placed under the more button. So we're going to go ahead and switch to normal. All right, so that was view. And notice the start page is there too. So if you want to bring that start page, again, this is the page where you have the announcements. This is where you bring that page back. All right, so next we have organization and records. Organization basically refers to the agency itself. What exactly are the records found under organization? Anything that has to do with the agency, say, for example, classes. The classes are under the agency. The teachers are under the agency. Your testing sessions are under the agency. Your consumption of WTUs, web test units, they're under the agency. Records, on the other hand, it's all about the student. So what, what test the student has taken, what enrollments, instruction enrollments the student has, the demographic of the students and so forth. So again, organization is about the agency itself and its records, and records, it's about the students and the multiple records that student has. So let's go ahead and click on organization, and let's click on agencies, organization and agencies. Now, notice the format that TE uses. Again, this is what we call a lister. Obviously, there's only one record right here because there's only one agency. The agency has only one agency record. If we double click on this record over here, the system switches to this next format, which you're going to be seeing, in other pages. So here in the center space or page, you have the basic information. This is your agency information. You have your agency identification, the agency ID 4908, the license is CASAS, the funding sources that this agency has been set with, state, and so forth. So this is your main information. In addition to that, you have the information that pertains to this main screen. In this case, will be sites, test administration, program years, users, and so forth. Let's go ahead and click on sites. I'm going to go ahead and click on sites. Once I click on sites, I get to see all the sites that are active under the Rolling Hills agency. So you can see over here, you have, let's see, a total of 8 sites. So it's saying 1 out of 8. That's basically 8 sites that have been created under the agency 4908. I can always double click on my site, let's say, for example, 01 North Campus, and it will take me to the site information itself. Notice how the format still follows the same, where you have the main information, the main page over here. This time will be site identification, site information, and then the different sections for the site information. That will be sub-site, class definitions, class instances, and so forth. Now, notice that as I'm clicking from one to another section, the system is opening different tabs so that I can always go back to the previous page and the previous page. So this is one way to go to your previous activity. If you don't need it, you can just go ahead and click on the X over here to close that particular tab. So we're going to go back to the agency records. So following the options over here available under my navigator, I'm going to go ahead and click under program years. Program years is basically the years that the agency has been active. So in Rolling Hills, notice we have a total of 12 years of activity. So here I can go ahead and expand my columns just like with any other listers. I can go ahead and expand my columns and see the funding sources that have been applied for the different program years. And I can see the years over here as well. So we're going to continue down. You have also users. So these are the users that are active in TE. I noticed that one of the questions is how to give access to your teachers. So we're going to go ahead and address that next. So I'm going to go ahead and notice, in addition to that, obviously, you have, the class definitions, everything that refers to the agency. But obviously, because of time restriction, we're not going to go over. If there is one specific field, please feel free to address it. I ask for, Janice to stop me and let me know if there's anything that I'm missing, anything that needs to be addressed, at this time. Any questions, please let me know. I'm going to go ahead and close this tab right now and close the agency tab. I'm going to go back to organization. So we basically looked at agencies, we looked at sites, and now we're going to look at classes. So each agency, if you are TE enhanced, gives you the capability of creating classes. Why would you want to create classes? Because this is another way of sorting your data by the class. Very, very useful. You can go ahead and set your report, set your listers, exporting data by the class, by the teacher, by the enrollments in a particular class. So those TE enhanced users can go ahead and use classes. Now, if you do have classes, you have definitions and instances. Definitions, just like the name says, is basically the description of the class, basically the ID and the name. Instances, on the other hand, is everything else that applies to the class. Let's say the time to start, the class starts, the time the class ends. What are the instructional programs? What are the if this class is a distance learning, which is very popular option now, and what are the hours assigned for distance learning and so forth. So this is where the parameters of the class go. So we're going to go ahead and click on class definitions. Notice that you have all the classes displayed over here. These classes would have to be created in order to appear over here. Obviously, you would create them by clicking on the new button over here and set your class. So I'm going to go ahead and click on new. And notice that when I click on new, it gives me basically a blank page. I get to choose, what site I need to save this class under, and then the class ID, the class description, and anything else that has to do under the definition. All right, so once I save, and I won't save for this, but what I will do is I will go ahead and click on one of these over here, one of these classes. Then the system will go ahead and give me the capability of creating a class instance. So if I click on class instance, notice that this class, which is my, my ESL beginning class, I see all the years that this class has been active. So 2015 to 16, all the way to 2020, 21. I also see the focus areas for those EL Civics class, those of you who are doing EL Civics, and I see the instructional programs for these classes and the start and the end date. If I am to double click on one of these records, then I can see further information about the class itself. Again, this is what the class instance is. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the pencil icon, and under the pencil icon, notice that for many of these fields, you have to click on the pencil icon to extend that information, to edit. So the pencil icon is more like a safety feature to, not enter anything in the class that shouldn't be entered, or just to avoid entering something by mistake. So once you click on that pencil icon, it enables that section to, to be edited. All right. So we're going to go ahead and, under this class instance, we have instructional programs. We have special programs. Notice that this is an ESL class, as we know. Then we have, this class also teaches EL Civics, and the focus area has been set over here. The instructional settings have been set for classroom. Notice that you have the option over here of distance learning. So you also have under special programs the option here for distance learning. So here it is, distance learning over here. So for those classes who are being taught, distance learning, through distance learning right now remotely, you can go ahead and select this option. You can go ahead and select the instructional settings, and you can go ahead and do this physical settings, whether this class is being held, in the classroom or, from home. And you can also set the parameters for the class itself as far as the time. So on the bottom over here, you will see, let me move my menus over here. You see that under intensity, notice that there's another pencil, that you need to click over here in order to enable these, field. Then you have the dates in which the class is being taught, the time per day that this class, takes. Then, in addition to that, you are basically to distinguish the distance learning, time from the 120, how many minutes will be in distance learning versus how many minutes will be, under the class, itself. So in here, you are to enter the total amount of time for the term. So this is in hours. Everything else will be in minutes. In addition to that, you are to set your class to yes if you are collecting distance learning, if this is a distance learning class. All right, but if you have questions about distance learning, we can definitely address that. Again, you can always send us an email. You can address it on the chat, or anything else we can follow up. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and close this page now. I'm not gonna save anything, and I'm gonna go back to my class definitions. So again, these are all my classes definitions. Now, I can also access my class instances through classes and instances. So again, keep in mind that these are the classes settings for all your classes. So here you see the site, here you see the ID, the class description, the starting and ending date, and instructional programs. I can always double click on that class. So let's say that class that we clicked before, I believe it was this one over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and double click on the class. Here's the class, here's the settings that we have in the class. So again, you can access this information through the definition by looking at the menu, the navigator menu, or I can go to organization, classes, and instances. I mean, many times TE has different ways to address the same information. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and continue under organization. So one of the questions that was addressed was how to give access, whether you're a teacher, whether you're an administrator, whether you are, a person who does the data. I see a question by Deborah. It says, please clarify instances. All right, so the definition, as the name says, your class definition is basically your ID and your class description. Your instance, on the other hand, is everything else that pertains to the class, all the settings that pertains to the class. So if we are to go to organization and definitions, you see based on the fields offering here, you have the class ID and the class description. If we are to go to the instance, on the other hand, once you create the definition, you see the class ID, you see the start date, the end date, the instructional program. If we are to click on any of these records, you see all the parameters for the class, the date of starting, the ending date, the instructional program, your special program. You see whether this is a distance learning class, how many days in this class is being taught through the week, the amount of hours that are set for attendance in this class, whether this attendance is in classroom or through distance learning. So those are the settings for your class. All right. Okay, so I see another question by Dr. Karen. It says to create one class, let's see, a class definition and a class instance. Very good. So I'm going to go ahead and create one. And now, one thing is to point out, you first need to create a definition. You need a definition to have an instance. So once you create the definition, and I'm going to go ahead and go to organization, classes, and definitions. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this same class I've been clicking. So once I create this class, the system will give me the opportunity to create class instances. So I'm going to click on class instances, and here I can either go ahead and click on the new button, or I can just go to organization, classes, and instances, and click on this new button, either one of the two. All right, but just to show you the sequence over here, once you create that class definition, you can go ahead and click on the new button and create the class instance. Once we click on the class instance, then the system gives me a blank form. Here I can go ahead and select the program year, select the starting, the ending date, and so forth. So all the parameters are there. It's just a matter of you saving, and then the class instance gets created. All right. So I see another follow-up question. Okay, very good. So Jade is addressing about resetting class. So do class have to reset on the yearly basis? You have to create new classes on the yearly basis. That is correct. So every class, you have the parameters of 7/1 from 7/1/2020 for this program year to 6/30/2021. That's basically your program year. So once that time expires, you get into the new program year. You have to create those new classes. This is why the class instances has been created. So it's one class, as you can see over here, for each program year. If the class is being taught under a semester, and this class, goes, on different times during the year, you will have to create one class definition and one class instance for each of those classes, on the yearly basis. All right. So let me go ahead and move forward. So again, we address organization, and that has to do with your agency. So the next one will be users. So the question was, how do I give access to my users? So notice that once we click on organization and users, we get a lister this time. So this is what basically, I refer to a spreadsheet type of, display of data. So under this, I can either edit any of these accounts by double click, or create a new account by clicking on the new button on the upper left-hand corner. So if I click on the new button, then once again, just the same format as used before, I get that main page. In this case will be my user information. So here I get to determine whether the user is going to have an agency level of access or a site level of access. What is the difference between those two? If the user is to have access for all the sites under your agency, you want to go ahead and put them under the agency level. If the user is to have access under a specific site only, then you go ahead and create that user account under the site. All right. So then you can go ahead and set the user with a user account. CASAS recommends to set the user with the user's email, work email. The password is a temporary password that you set at this point. This temporary password is basically the first name lowercase. This is what CASAS recommends. First name lowercase. The user is going to go ahead and reset this password at the point of logging in. So that temporary password set, by the data manager. Let's say, for example, it's recommended to be the first name lowercase because it has to be easy. The user is to reset that password at the point of logging in. The system will ask to reset the password.
This is Janice. Let me see if I can turn off that noise just for 1 second. There we go.
Can everyone hear me?
That's the whole music for CASAS, Oscar. We all recognize that.
I am sorry. All right. Thank you very much, Janice. All right. So creating users accounts, this is basically where you create a user account. One big component of the user is the access. So if you are to click on the groups over here, you can go ahead and determine the access that you are to have for this user. So usually, it all depends if you are setting a user with a role for TE or for ETIS or for both. Notice that under my menu here, I have some of them starting with ET, that stands for ETIS. Others starting with TE, that stands for TE. So if the user is an ETIS user and a TE user, you are to include one of each. So say, for example, this user has completed the trainings of proctor and coordinator, then and the user submits the certification to the data manager, then the data manager can go ahead and follow up by creating a user account and giving access of ET coordinator / proctor. And then you can go ahead and click on the add button. Notice what happens when I click on the add button. You get basically an acknowledgement saying that you, as the data manager, are confirming that this user has completed the corresponding trainings. In this case, will be for the coordinator and proctor. All right. So we can just go ahead and say yes. All right. Now, in addition to that, let's say that this user is to also have TE access. And basically this is your, the data manager's backup person. So one recommended access under the enhanced will be TE admin access. That's basically the highest level of access below the data manager. As we all know, data manager is only one person per agency. So the agency can only have one data manager, but the data manager can go ahead and create as many TE admins as he or she needs to. So TE admin will be the next level, below data manager. All right, and then we can click on add. Now, one thing to disclose, and let me just close this because this is not does not apply. You can only have one of each, meaning one of e-test and one of TE. You can definitely select more. The system will definitely select you more, but just a heads up, the system will go ahead and cancel and give you the lesser of the ones that you selected. So it's never good to just go and select all of these because the system's going to grab the lesser of them all and give you that access. So it's not a good idea. It's basically just one for each of those groups, one for e-test and one for TE. All right. So below that, we just basically have the user information. Do not worry about these options over here. The system will go ahead and reset, will go ahead and provide the user with a password with the opportunity of resetting the password at the point of logging in when that account is new. All right. So under user contact, you can provide at least first name, last name, and email. Those are the three fields that are needed in order to save. Obviously, if you have additional information, better. If we are to scroll to the next section below, you have menu access rights. Let me go ahead and compress that. Container access rights and data access rights. Basically, you do not have to do anything over here. This is all predetermined by the access group that you are selecting for TE over here. So there is no need for you to click and select anything under menu access rights. There is no need for you to select anything under container access rights. There is no need for you to select anything under data access right. All that is determined by the access group, the TE access group that you select over here. All right, so just to give you, that information. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and close this user, and this will be how to create a user account. But the original question was how to create a user account for a teacher. So instead of giving TE access for administrators, all you need to do is just select TE teacher access. Notice that we have, this is obviously contains all the access available, so you might see more than what you're seeing on your own agency, but it gives you all the options. So how to give teachers read-only rights. That's exactly what the teacher's access is, Deborah. So teachers, notice that you have, the enhanced and you have basics, the different access for those. So you have two levels of access for teachers, and the teacher's access is limited. So they, unless apart from entering and enrolling students, let's say, for example, enrolling students, they do not have access to delete. They do not have access to edit much of this information. But if you would like to customize this access group, whether it's your teacher access or any other access, really, you can go ahead and do the following. So we're going to use this to move to the next section, access groups. So as we know, every user has an access group. So we're going to go ahead and click on access groups. And here under access group, you have all the access groups that are set for your agency. So in this case, the question is about teachers. So we're going to go ahead and click on the TE Teacher Basics access. So now, you might remember how I said, do not click on anything under menu access rights. Do not click anything under container access rights. Do not click anything under data access rights under the user's account. Under the access rights, this is where everybody who has a user account, this is where you can go ahead and do these individual changes. because we are editing the access group and not the individual user's account. The reason for that, to give you a background, is that if you are to set individual access right, this is what we call individual access right to the user, basically slows down the system, your system, because now your system has to think of the individual access right that pertains to this user apart from what the group has been set to. So that in a large approach for all your users or multiple users that you set, it will slow down your system. So it is highly not recommended to do this. If you have to customize that access group, you go ahead and do it under access group, which is, again, organization and access groups. So here, we can go ahead and click on data access rights. Notice that as opposed to my other screen for users, this enables me to see those check marks that are selected. So notice that for teacher, you have list, or for all users, I should say, you have list, you have view, you have create, update, delete, and check all. So list is basically me doing this. I'm going to records, I'm going to students, and I'm going to demographics. The capability of seeing this is listing. So this is what list refers to. All right. So then view records, on the other hand, means that I can go to record students demographics. I have the listing capability, and I can double click on the record and view that specific demographic record. That is view. Then that listing view, create the record, on the other hand, will be the capability of me going to records again, students demographics, and then being able to list, being able to double click and view, and being able to click and create a new one, create a new record under any of these sections, whether it's a class enrollment, program enrollment, and so forth. So you get the point how this particular account for teacher is limited. It's only to list for these particular actions. If we scroll down, we see the different sections. So they do have, especially under student, they are able to see, a list, the in-program years, the tests, the student records, the class enrollments, demographic, and so forth. That's basically what a teacher is, it needs to see. So, but of course, this is the basics account, for teachers. We're going to switch to the enhanced, and you can compare the difference. So update, as the name says, is to update existing records. Delete, definitely not given for, many of those accounts, only for administrative, like TE admin. Then you can delete records. And obviously check all if you want to select all for that particular role. So now that we've seen the ones that populate under TE Basics for data access, right, for your teachers, we're going to go ahead and compare it with TE Teacher Access Enhanced. I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the bottom. Sorry, I have to move my boxes as I'm going from one to the other. And notice that this user, because this is an enhanced, has a little more access. You have list, you have view, and you have some update. Again, this is your teacher access enhanced versus the basics. So for classes, you can go ahead and create you can list those classes, view those classes, the class information, and update any existing records. Notice that you do not have access to create nor delete, but you do have more access than the previous basics, teachers basics. All right. So basically that is a little bit about access. Obviously we addressed it around the teachers idea, but this caters to any records. If it's more of an administrative role, you're gonna get more access to update, to create, to delete. All right. All right. So because of the timing, we're gonna go ahead and move forward. All right. So again, organization has to do everything about the agency. Just a quick overview. The next options that are important, will be your testing sessions. Here you can see your testing stations, your testing sessions. So if we click on this, once again, the system uses that lister format, and then you can see all your testing sessions that you can assign for each test, that you have assigned for each test. Notice that they are set by the year, so you can go to previous program years and so forth. you might have noticed that you have to replicate your classes on the yearly basis. So this is where you replicate your classes. So to replicate the classes, it's just a matter of selecting the records that need to be replicated, then click on more, then click on batch replicate, and then the system will open this window, which would help you to replicate. So here in this window, you are setting, whether you want to replicate into a new program year. Let's say you're just going from, 2019-20 to 2021. This will be the corresponding option. Or if you just created a new site and you want to copy the sessions from site A to site B, you would go ahead and select replicate sessions into a new site, and then the system gives you the capability of stating the site that you have to replicate it to, and then on the bottom, just click on batch replicate. So again, this is done on the needed basis, and within the year or from one year to the other as you are required to replicate your sessions. All right. Let's go ahead and move forward now to records. Remember how I said organization has to do everything about the agency. Records, on the other hand, has to do about the student. So what are the records that pertain to the student? Demographics, student demographics, classes, enrollments and the class records, and programs. The records from the program and the enrollments from those programs, and of course, tests. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go to records, students, demographics, records, students, demographics. Now, there's different ways of creating a demographic record. I have to say the most common way will be through e-test. E-test is it's our electronic testing. So with electronic testing, the session is set to collect the demographic information first. And once the student enters the demographic information, a record gets created, a demographic record gets created in the database. So that will be the most common way of creating. But in addition to that, you can enter the record through an import. Say, for example, through your attendance system, you bring that import, the system will go ahead and recognize that demographic record and import that data. In addition to that, you can do scanning. Those agencies who are doing paper tests with their entry record, you scan that entry record. The system will go ahead and import that data through the scanner. You scan that information and enter that data and creates a demographic record. Or you can go ahead and create the record manually. So to create it manually, again, we went to records, students, demographics. And under the demographic lister, I have the new button on my upper left. So if I click on the new button, once again, just like we've seen in the past, you have the main information on your center page, and then you have the added information here. So let's go ahead and create a quick record for myself. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Oscar the student is enrolled to the North Campus. So my ID is going to be notice that the ID will take numeric and alphabetical characters. So I'm just going to go ahead and say Oscar 1, 2, 3. All right. So that's my ID, and I'm going to go ahead and enter the basic information. You don't have to enter everything that appears over here. If there are any required fields that are missed at the point of creating, the system is going to go ahead and prompt me before saving the record. So let's just go ahead and say 01 for birth date, 01, 19, 20. Let's see, let's just go ahead and say 78 here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save the record. Notice that once I save my record, I have all these options that I did not have before. I have in program years, which is the years Oscar the student is going to be active, the student records, which are all the information that pertains to your entry record and so forth, class enrollments, the classes the student is enrolled to, the class records, which is attendance and any other information from your classes, and program enrollments, the programs the student is enrolled to, and obviously tests, and any previously, demographic data that has been entered. So if I am to, I'm going to go ahead and purposely create activity for Oscar the student. So I'm going to click on in program years. Now, What is an in-program year record? An in-program year record basically determines that the student is active in the current program year. If you are to enter a entry and update a class enrollment, program enrollment, any of those records contain a date. If you are to test the student, that test alone contains a date. Any of those records will trigger the system to create an in-program year automatically. But because this is a practice, I'm going to go ahead and create one manually. So I'm going to click on the new button. I'm going to select that Oscar the student is active for the 2021 year. And I'm going to go ahead and save. That's all I need. Notice there was no need for me to enter any of the information below. So now I can see the record here for Oscar the student that there is an in-program year for 2021. If I am to close this, screen, and I can go ahead and look for Oscar the student here. So what we see over here, it's a lister, as we said. This lister gives you a lot more capabilities. Just like your spreadsheet, you have the option of, you have the columns and rows. Not only that, but you also can bring additional information under, by right-clicking on your menu. One of the options you have is filtering. These little icons you see, this funnel, notice that each column has one, it's your filter. I'm gonna go ahead and click on my filter for name, actually ID, ID, and I'm gonna go ahead and search for Oscar 123. I can search for start with, or usually I like to do contains because things is a little more flexible. So I'm gonna enter Oscar 123, and there's Oscar the student. So there's the gender, there's the birthday, there's the name, all the information that I provided already. If I am to double click over here, it takes me back to my student information, and I can go ahead and follow up with any information here. Now, just as a side note here, notice that in order for me to create that demographic record, and in order for me to see that record under this lister, I had to create an in-program years record. I would not be able to see that record, that demographic record, even though it's in the system, without this in-program years record. Why? Because this is exactly the purpose of an in-program year record. It creates activity under the current program year. In other words, everything I see under this lister, let me go ahead and cancel that filter here. Anybody that you see under this lister has some kind of form of activity in the current program year. So whether it's attendance, whether it's an entry, an update, a test, enrollment in the class, or in a program, it basically, it determines that the student has activity. If you create a demographic record alone, the demographic record does not have any date information. So therefore, the system is not going to show that demographic record if it's just the demographic data alone. You would have to follow up and create an in-program years record to trigger manually that activity, or enter, activity of test, class enrollment, program enrollment, and so forth. All right, so
hey,
moving
Oscar,
along.
Oscar, before you leave the screen,
Yes.
I think it might be helpful if you show us all that little trick when you take your mouse up into the columns and you right click. And say, for instance, right now we're looking at name and you have first name and last name. Show how you use the right click and bring up individual pieces or hide.
Very good point. Very good point. Thank you, Janice. So as a part of your options here, you can go ahead and customize this lister. One way of doing so is to right click, as Janice mentioned, on the title bar. The title bar is basically the column where you see the titles of each column: site, student name, birth date, and so forth. You can right click anywhere on the title bar. I'm going to right click on the empty space towards my right, and the system will go ahead and bring additional information. Notice that I have address, age, cell phone, city. Everything that is shown under this menu pertains to the demographic window lister that I am on. If you were to be on the test lister and I right click on the title bar, it would only give me information that pertains to tests. All right, so for the demographic lister, I have this information. So as Janice points out, many of the databases breaks the name by first name, separate from last name, or perhaps the last name is first. So let's just go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and say show first name. Notice what happened. My first names for the students are here only. This gives me the capability of using my add filter button that we used before, and I can go ahead and filter by only the first name if I wanted to. I can also click and drag my columns so that they're visually easier to read next to other names. I can also right click again and bring show last name. Now I have the first name and the last name separated. So I can either sort or filter by the last name. My sorting button is this right here. So this right here is sorting button. This right here will be my add filter. It's just a form of a filter button. Now notice that the student ID does not have a sort button. The student ID has an arrow pointing up, a yellow or orange arrow pointing up. What that means is that this particular lister is set by student ID, sorted by student ID by default. I can always change that default by just clicking on any other fields. Let's say I want to go ahead and sort by last name. So I click on that. Notice that the student ID column, no longer has the orange triangle, and now it's under my last name. Now, a quick nice trick over here is that you can set different sorts of different levels of sorting. I can go ahead and say, well, I want last name sorted by last name, but I also want them sorted by birth date. So I'm going to go ahead and press and hold my control key and click on that double arrow for birth date. Notice what happens now. My last name gets a 1 and my birth date column gets a 2. Means that the names are sorted by last name first and by birth date second. In addition to that, notice that the arrow is pointing up. If I am to click on the arrow, I can go ahead and point it down, and then now it's in descending order as opposed to ascending order, whether it's alphabetically or numerically by the birthday, and then, we can always set the birthday once again. I can set it by gender if I wanted to. You can just go crazy on your levels of sorting you want. All right. So again, we have the columns. We have how to add additional columns by right clicking on the title bar. And we also went over the add filter options and the sorting. In addition to that, remember how we said about the more button? If we do not have enough space on our screen, we would have a more button. There's a more button over here with additional options that we're gonna go over just in a bit. Let me go ahead and cover these other buttons that we see on the top. We have the new button. The new button, again, is to create those new records. Then you have the pull-down menu over here if you want to filter by a specific site. So if I want to go ahead and filter by North Campus, it gives me only the students for North Campus. Notice that my count over here for North Campus is 2,877. If I click on this menu again and switch it at the agency level, now my count, it's going to be up, it's going to be counting once again, but my count, notice that it says over here 6,772. All right, so that's basically my current count for all of them. So, and then you have aggregated. Basically, this is just showing those records that have multiple records under different sites. Those are the subsites that the students are active under. And you have the filter button. Filter button is just another extension of your add filter. This is a lot more complex though, because here you can go ahead and set, a very complex filter. You want to set it by students, with a specific, let's say, program enrollment. And then you can go ahead and set the program enrollment, and then you want to add the instructional program. Or the instructional program, I will say is right here. So I can go ahead and, set it to high school, or let's say ESL, and then you can add even more, filters. It's very complex. So that is another form of filtering. Notice that the default filter is by current program year. So again, this is everybody who's active in the current program year. If the student has an entry and updated program enrollment, a class enrollment, a test, all those, have a date and that date pertains to this program year, then the system will go ahead and show those records under this right here. What happens if I remove this option of current program year? Then you get to see everybody across years. So without any restriction. So let's say this will be another example. This will be another way for you to see that record for Oscar the student if I were not to create an in-program years record. So, and this is a good, this is one common call that we get in tech support. I just created the record, the demographic record, and I cannot see it under my demographic lister. Yet, when I go ahead and create that record, the system tells me that the record is already created. So what is going on? So that's basically what that means. It means that the record needs to have some, activity. In program year will be one way to create activity, or you can just go ahead and click on the filter button, remove the current program year option, and then you can see everybody, under the filter. All right. So let's go ahead and continue over here by clicking on the more button. Notice that under the more button, I have my count over here. I am under the agency level, so I have plenty of records showing over here. Those who are familiar with the reading level indicator, this is where you send your invite, and you can go ahead and refresh, you can go ahead and export, you can go ahead and print, edit schema. Let's say, for example, you prefer this look rather than the default setting that has been set by the program. We can go ahead and remove name. Let's say, for example, we're going to remove the name by clicking on hide full name. And let's say that this is the setting that you want for TE to open each and every time. You can go ahead and click on more. You can go ahead and click on edit schema. Go ahead and give it a name. Let's just say that, by last name, and then save it. So now notice that I have my selection by last name, and every time you open this lister, you can go ahead and go to your schema. You can click on by last name, and the system will go ahead and open all the settings that have been set prior. All right. Very good. So then in addition to that, under the more button, let's see upload miscellaneous. All right, miscellaneous. Under miscellaneous, one common question too that we get in tech support is, my student entered their own ID and a record got created under their own ID in addition to the record that it was already in the system. So you would have to merge the records. So in order to merge, that is done under the demographic lister, you are to select two records. So I press and hold my shift key, select the two records. So you have to select two records to merge, not one, not three. It has to be two at a time. So I click on more, I click on miscellaneous, and I click on merge. Can I merge students from different sites? Oh, very good. All right, so the students can only be merged from one same site. Each of these students appear once under each site. So obviously, if they're from different sites, that is not a valid merge. Let's just say these two students. Notice I'm looking at the columns for site over here, and they both happen to be from North Campus. I can extend this column so it's easier to read. So these students are both from North Campus. I'm going to go ahead and click on more, miscellaneous, and merge. So notice what the system is going to do now. The system is going to grab the information from both of those records, and it's going to highlight the inconsistent information among both records. So starting with the student ID, the system makes a recommendation based on the earliest record and the record that is most complete, but that doesn't mean necessarily that this is the correct selection. So ultimately, you are to select which record is the correct one, and in addition to that, you can always type in and enter the right information if you need to. Then you click on solve, and you do this for each of those fields that are highlighted. And once you're done with this window, the system will ask you to go to the next one, which is student in program years. There's additional information that needs to be solved. Here, once you're done with that, you apply the merge, and that student becomes one. All the information gets put into one same ID. The only thing that gets deleted will be the previous ID. Other than that, everything else gets merged. All right? So that will be one way. And the last part I wanted to cover under miscellaneous will be the batch insert. Let's say, for example, you're looking to enter program enrollments or a class enrollments for multiple students. So this is a way of doing it in a batch. And I think it was addressed in one of the questions. How do I do a batch, form of edit? So in this case, a batch entry for program enrollments or class enrollments, let's go ahead and select a group of people. So I'm basically clicking on one, pressing and holding my shift key, and click on, the last record, and it selects everybody in between. Then I go to more, then I go to miscellaneous, and then I go to batch insert, and then I have the option of inserting students into the program year. Remember, this is an in-program year record if you want to trigger activity, or if I want to enroll students in a program, or if I want to enroll students in a class, or entering a test. Now, consider that when you do this, anything that is set will apply to all my students selected. There is no individual information here. Everybody gets one same setting. So this is the only way things are applied in a batch form. So here I can go ahead and set an ESL program. This is 2021 year. Everybody's going to have a starting date of today. So I click OK. And the system goes ahead and automatically enters, for everybody over there. Obviously, it tells me that some of them, already have an instructional program, for ESL under this year. So it lets me know that, there are no duplicates allowed. That's basically what it is. But this is a batch insert. Now, in addition to batch insert, we have batch edit. So notice that the batch delete and the batch edit button get enabled when I select the multiple records. If I go back and click one record, those two get disabled. Obviously, batch means group. So anytime you select a group of students, then those buttons get enabled. Now, be careful with the batch delete button. The system will require a second credential in order to allow batch deleting. In addition to having the option, the access for batch deleting. Not everybody has access to batch deleting, and even when you can, it requires a second person to delete. So it's best to just, consider your options before deleting. Now, batch edit, on the other hand, gives me the capability of editing all these records. So notice that when I click on batch edit, I can go ahead and set the information. Again, just like with batch insert, anything that I change will pertain to the entire group. So let's say, for example, the gender. I'm going to go ahead and change female over here. If it applies, right? So any information that you set over here, it would apply to the entire group. So perhaps for demographic, this is not, the best, way, but if it applies just for the purpose of the practice here, we can go ahead and click save. Notice that it requires a second person to do the batch. Again, just like with batch deleting, it requires a second person. Because we're under the fictitious database, I can go ahead and set administrator, and I'm going to say 1, because I am currently in 0, administration 1 at rhas.org, and the password we said it was admin. All right, so I'm going to click OK, and there it is. The system is processing all the records. So again, just to recap, we went over batch editing, batch insert, and we the batch delete button. On the other hand, let me go ahead and see if we can batch delete. Now, one thing to keep in mind with batch deleting is that this is a demographic record. The database is structured by parent and child or children records. Parent records are the record on the higher tier, if you can say. Child or children records are records that are dependent of their parent. So in order for us to delete the parent record, we have to delete the child or children records. So the system will not let us delete anything over here because we know that there is at least one record which triggers activity in this lister in order for this to appear over here. So the system will have to ask us to delete that child or children record. That could be an in-program years record, that could be an attendance record, that could be a class enrollment, program enrollment. It depends, so it is very complex. If you are in a situation where you need to delete multiple records, please feel free to contact CASAS Tech Support. We can definitely look over the situation and offer you, other options if apply. Or we can go through the process of deleting those records, starting from those, child or children records, and then to the parent record. All right.
Hey,
all right,
Oscar,
very good. So we're going to go ahead and go ahead.
Hey, Oscar, I don't want to get you off the agenda. How are we doing for time? I know that there were a lot of things we were going to cover.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of things still left on your schedule for today? What's still remaining?
As far as the training time or as far as the entire day?
Well, for the training time today, what are the topics that are still uncovered for today's agenda, please?
Basically, reports and tools.
Okay.
The main is for reports and tools.
All right, let's go.
All right?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and, this basically, it's records. So just to do a quick, final overview, then we can go ahead and click, about classes. This is basically your enrollment of classes for the students. So it works the same as your demographic lister. You have the columns, you have the rows, you have, the capability of adding additional options. Notice that the options are slightly different because this pertains to the class enrollments now. Then, program enrollments. This is all about the enrollments of your students into a program. Notice that the information is slightly different. You have the instructional program show over here, the day they enter and so forth. If we right click, the options are slightly different as well because they pertain to the program enrollments. And, for those of you who are doing core performance, there's, other sections, but we're going to leave those behind because they are specific to a certain section of our users. All right, but test. So again, test will be just like any other lister. The information is, is specific to the test itself. Here you have the dates. Here you have the force, the scales, scores, and so forth. If you are to double click on the test itself, it goes down into the student, the test information window. And then, you can go ahead and click on the edit button and see, much of this information available. Notice that when it comes to the test answers, they're not set right or wrong. That is specifically set so that, the user just basically is able to, create the test, but not change that, that test. If you ever need to change the test, you would have to basically click duplicate, and it will let you edit that test information. But otherwise, it's intended to be left as it is. All right, so that is the test information. And like I say, with any other lister, you can always right click and have additional information for your test data. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the X for the tabs so we can go ahead and go back. And now we're going to continue with reports. So as I said, TE has two ways of displaying your data, through listers and reports. Listers, as we said, is basically like a spreadsheet, and reports is a cleaner way of showing the information. So some of the common reports will be, about the test data. So, and those could be found under reports, test results, and you have skills profile, competency reports, content standards, learning gains, test responses, and test history. Let's go ahead and go, let's see if we can generate the skills profile report. So I'm going to go ahead and click on individual skills profile. Notice that some of these reports, they have the summary and they have the student version. So summary basically is for those agencies that are enhanced. This is basically the class, you know, as a group, as opposed to the student itself. This is just the student alone. So here you have the capability of selecting classes. Here you have, you know, the student itself. So, or the way it shows the information, I should say, it's by class or by student. All right, so one of the questions that are usually asked is to show grade level equivalent. Basically, this is, you know, based on the test score, you know, what level the student falls under, what grade level the student falls under. So I'm going to go ahead and under my navigator, I'm going to click on tests, and you know, these are basically the students that are, you know, active. Let's go ahead and see if we can generate the test as it is. It might just give us a warning that there are too many pages, so I might just remove the warn if too many pages. But let's see if it still allows us to generate. Any questions in the meantime, Janice? They need to be addressed.
All good, Oscar. Carry on. All good.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you know, this is always good to run your report, say, by the class, but because we are under the Rolling Hills database, not every class is, you know, with enrollments. So, to avoid the situation where we have to pick and choose classes without knowing the enrollments, we just go ahead and run the report as it is right now across the agency. And let's see if it gives us, yeah, we'll see. It tells me that there are too many pages, you know, to run. Let's see. Let me go ahead and choose a specific class. Hopefully, we can find one. I'm going to go ahead and go to North Campus here.
Excuse me, when you got too many pages, you still have the option to export and you get the PDF with the whole report.
Yes, yes, that's a very, very good point. If this is a report that you must generate, and you know, the fact that even without the option of you know, warning too many pages, you still not need that data. You have the option of exporting, you know, by clicking on the export button here, and then the system will still include that report. The feature of too many pages, you know, it's because it consumes a you know, server time, and then that in general as a big approach for all agencies across the server, then it slows down the system. So if it's not required to run this data as a whole, as we are doing, the system you know, instead asks for you to narrow down your selection by class or so forth, which is what we're doing. But yes, that is true. If you do need that data as it is, you can always export. It gives you the opportunity of exporting as an Excel or a CSV format, and you can you know, edit that data from an Excel spreadsheet. Thank you for addressing that. Okay, so let me see if I find one class that could give me that information. No, yeah, this will be difficult to tell because obviously, you know, the classes, you know, some classes have enrollments, others don't. What I'm going to do is, in this particular case, is I'm going to go ahead and look at the test instead. And since we have tests I'm showing here, I'm going to go ahead and select the student rather than, you know, the student with the test rather than the class. So again, you can use any of these selection to make your selection. Sometimes classes, most of the time, classes will be your best option. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and choose test because I know this is test specific information. And, you know, the system should give me that information based on the test. So I'm just going to select a group of students here and click generate. Okay, there you go. So for first student, notice that the report is sorted by the user, the student, I'm sorry. Then you have the agency and the site, and you have the test that is, addressed. In this particular case, for Azucena Maldonado, the student has a 10.1 grade equivalent. This is a reading test for ESL, and here are the items that were covered, and these are the number of questions, and this is the percentage of correct answers. So, and then it's it's the same information is addressed, student by student. All right, notice that it goes from one form at a time, and this happens to be all ESL students. We see that under the program, and we also see under the test that was given. Notice that this student is a diamond score. Those of you who know about the accuracy range, diamond score in the very first test it's recommended to post-test, because that means that the test was too easy for the student. All right, but this is one common report that is given. Another report that is given, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my report menu here, will be test results and will be competency performance. And I'm going to go ahead and select the student level again. So again, I went to reports, test result, competency performance, and student competency performance. All right, so I'm going to click on the test again. I'm going to select multiple students here, and I'm going to generate. All right, so notice that this record, it's a lot of, more extensive, more detailed than the previous one. It is addressed by the student, by one student at a time. You have the agency, you have the class, you have the teacher if applies, the form that is addressed. So this basically goes up, question by question, whether they're correct or not, their competency number, their task level, and the description of the question itself. Now, if this is addressed by the class, it will be, basically question by question, and, how many of those students got this item correct. This will be a good report that is, good feedback for the teacher, so that, the teacher can see instructional, areas for this class. So if a student, if most of the class receive a incorrect under question 1, then perhaps the teacher needs to reinforce interpreting as, labels, charts, in selecting goods and services. So that's one good feedback. In addition to that, we have under reports. Let me go ahead and show you the demographic summary. Demographic, let's see, demographic detail, demographic summary. Yeah, let's do demographic. So we're going to go ahead and do demographic summary. Okay, very good. So under the demographic summary, this is one report that gives us the visual, added visual of graphics. So I'm going to go ahead and select my chart. This is basically my demographics across my agency, and I'm going to click generate. Let's see what the system can provide us without making any specific selections under the report. Okay, very good. So this is again about demographics. You can see students with social security number. There's your graph over here. You can change that pie graph from a pie to a bar if that's easier to read. It is your option. Then you have the data divided by the age ranges. So you can go ahead and see which one applies. And notice that as I am hovering on top of these numbers, they get highlighted. That means that these are drill in fields. So I can go ahead and click on this field for 18 to 21 with 1,004 students. It takes me to a lister, and here's the 1,004 students, and I can see all the students that applied under this section. I can go ahead and click on that student, the yellow bar, orange bar, and it takes me back to the report. So all of these fields can be drawn in. In addition to that, I can always go back to my layout settings and I can make any adjustments. Let's say, for example, I prefer to have it by the by bar, and I can go ahead and click on apply. So now it's going to render again, and instead of the pie chart, it will show me a bar. And obviously, this could be exported. When you export, depending on the report, it sets certain defaults. This particular one, because it's graphics, the default will be PDF. But in addition to that, you can always bring it as a Word document, as an Excel, as a comma-separated value, which is a CSV, as in a worksheet, for your Excel, document, and that applies to most reports. All right. So this is basically about reports, and we're going to address the last one, which is tools. Tools is for any additional tools that you need in order to work together with your database. Scanners. So if you are doing paper testing, you are to scan. You need a specific scanner. This is not just any scanner. This is not your Xerox scanner. This is a specific Scantron scanner that is set. I can refer you, please feel free to send us an email, and we can refer you to the type of scanners that are compatible with TE. It's under our CASAS website. But definitely send us an email, and we can give you a list of those, scanners. Third-party import. Third-party import is if you import the data from a third-party database. So this is where you are to do it. In order to do that third-party import, you have to do some setup. On the end, there is a documentation that your programming team would have to follow to basically, get that data approved. So that will be the third party. And those are the items that we're going to cover. The rest is specific to, the agency. Proxy Wizard, just to mention, the proxy process, very, very popular nowadays, especially with COVID. This will help you to bring those tasks from a particular time in the previous program year to this year. For this specific year, the options have been extended to, January 1st to June 30th. So any task within that time can work as your pretest for the current program year. So that's one option. So I'm going to quickly cover this before our time. I know we're just about to meet our exit time. So scanning. This is a wizard. It would go ahead and take you through the process of scanning. So the system has to be set up with a specific scanner and so forth. This is a wizard that would go ahead and bring this information. So again, because of time, I'm just gonna give you a quick overview of what the process is. Once the scanner is set up, it would go ahead and present you with the options for your specific scanner. So this, basically will be done at the point of setting up. Most scanners are set up with a laser that reads the top and a laser that reads the bottom of the sheet. So it saves you time because the sheet goes in once, and as it goes through, it reads the top and the bottom at once. All right. So basically, you make your selections, and then the system is going to go ahead and give you that information. So this is as far as I'm going to get, because obviously, we would have to be set up to scanner. But please feel free, if you need additional information about scanning, please feel free to contact us, and we can definitely provide you more information about that. I'm going to go ahead and switch now to third-party import. So third-party import is another way of bringing your information. All these are tools for TE. So here, there's certain databases, there's certain registration systems that would allow you to set up, they're already set up to work with CASAS. So if you do have one of those databases, the system is just it will go ahead and accept that data. Otherwise, you have to go through a certain checkup list of parameters in order to build that export file that gets generated from your third-party database. So you are to select the database that you need, the type of data that you're bringing. Notice that you can bring, personal, which is teachers, and class data, class user data, I'm sorry. Then you have class data, which is your class instances and your class definitions. Your demographic is basically those demographic records that we were looking before. SPS stands for student program status. That's basically your program enrollments. Entry data is your entry records. Student class status basically is your class enrollments. ATT, that is your attendance. Then, test itself, any of those tests that, qualify will be taken. And obviously the update in any high school exam or third-party system, exams. So basically that is the type of data that the system assess. Now, let me cover proxy, and then I'll show you the documentation for the setup of these items. All right, so for the proxy wizard, we said, this is in the case that you have to proxy data from a previous program year to bring it as a pretest for this current year. The system will automatically set this test as 7/1/2020. That's your default date for the test. So it's just a matter to go through the wizard. Once you make your selections, the system will basically give you these options as far as selecting the data. The two most common will be activity in the new program year, which is basically the system will determine, TE will determine who is active in the current program year, and based on those people who are active, those that qualify will be brought into your wizard for you to determine who is whose test is to be proxied. And then your other common option is summer session activity, and that basically gives you a little more control, which basically gives you everybody that qualifies based on testing activity from the January 1st to June 30th in this case, and you are to determine who is to be brought in as a proxy. Very important to keep in mind, if the student is not active in the current program year, there is no need for you to bring that test. Obviously, that will create activity under the new program year when the student is not really active, and then that will show under your reports and will basically make your data inaccurate because the student is not active with the test. So it's very important for you to work with your registration system to determine who is active in the current program year before you can bring that data. But obviously, you're welcome to send us an email and we can definitely walk you through. All right, so now let me go ahead and show you under our CASAS website where to get this data. So we're gonna go to the home page, and from the home page, we're gonna go to training and support on the top menu. Then on the side menu, we're gonna click on TOPSpro Enterprise Help. And under the side menu, once again, we're gonna click on Data Exchange. So under Data Exchange, here you have your TE data import templates. This is if you do not have a third-party system that is already set up. You can go ahead and basically create your own templates, and these are basically Excel sheets, and you just enter your data under those templates, and it's already formatted. Then you can go ahead and import those templates into TE. Before you can import, though, you have to send a copy of that template to tech support at CASAS.org so that the programmers can provide you with a vendor code. What is a vendor code? A vendor code is an import vendor code that the programmers provide for the specific agency once they confirm that the import template was set up as instructed. This is just to avoid any errors during the import process. So the programming team will look at each of those forms, make sure that they are good to go, and if they are, they go ahead and approve it. You would have to do that for each of those fields that we looked. Entry, program enrollment, class enrollment, attendance, one for each, they have to be approved. The specifications of your data, that is found under Exchange data with third-party systems. And let's say, for example, we are looking for demographics. So demographic will be page 10. So in page 10, you see the breakdown of what is required in order for TE to understand this data. So under your Excel template, this is how it's set up. So vendor code, that is to be provided by our programmers. State code, your California CA, and so forth. Agency ID, the agency that you have been provided with. Your site ID, student ID, and so forth. Notice that each one, have a maximum length of characters. There's a description over here. And again, this is, already provided under the template for you. This is just the format that is expected for you to, enter under these templates. All right. So that is for, demographics, let me go ahead and, also say that, let's say, for example, attendance, very common, to be using this for attendance. So if I click on page 19, again, the required fields will be vendor code. Once again, vendor code would always be the first, just as well as, state code and agency ID and site. And, you would have student ID, class ID, and so forth. So this will be the fields that are required. Again, they're included under your template. And, you just go ahead and enter the data as, is instructed here, especially when it comes to record date. So here you have the format of 2 days for the month, 2 days for the date, and 4 days for the year. So that is the format that is expected. Under participant source, we have the different source of hours, whether it's cumulated, whether it's daily, so it has to be, displayed as it shows over here, and so forth. So ultimately, this is a place that you refer to. Once again, the way we got to this page will be from the CASAS website. We went to training and support. We went to TOPSpro Enterprise Help on the side menu. And on the side menu, we click on data exchange. Under data exchange, you have the TE data import templates, and you have the TOPSpro Enterprise Data Exchange specification. Those two, work together. In addition to that, you have the document for using the proxy wizard. If you want a detailed, step-by-step process of proxy wizard, this is our help documentation page. Notice that you also have, how to merge duplicated students. Remember, we went through these options, using your third-party, import and export. All that is found under here. In addition to that, there's tons of helpful documentation, anything from how to create classes, anything for adding hours for the student. All this is documentation that is really helpful to have handy, because it will come, across when you are to need any of these documents. And of course, in addition to that, please feel free to contact us. We're available, as I said, from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Monday through Friday. Next week, as you know, it's a holiday, so we'll be open from Monday through Wednesday. All right, and that basically concludes the training. Thank you very much. Janice, anything else that needs to be addressed?
Oscar, I just want to tell you, I think you did an absolutely masterful job of covering so many things in an hour and 45 minutes. Just kudos to you, and thank you so much for preparing this for all our users. Definitely, a lot of the comments I've seen, even privately to me, Oscar, have been so complimentary. We just are so grateful to have you and all of the, let me just put my camera on. When I'm saying thank you, I want to say thank you. It really was an enjoyable.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you.
Hey, if you don't mind,
Janice. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Jay, please.
We're talking in detail about additional trainings. I think Summer Institute is that training we would have every June for 3 or 4 days. And a lot of the information that Oscar touched on today was covered in more bite-sized chunks. A lot of those trainings are still on CASAS.org. They haven't really changed much. So if you find one that's from 2018 or 2019, it's still probably 99% valid. So I encourage you, if you have specific questions, like you want to look up access groups, or you want to find out more about a specific test series, like that one question that came up about the 82RX, when I go into CASAS.org and I get that search bar, I'll type 82RX and it'll give me a whole bunch of choices, and I can kind of select through there and find one that addresses my question perhaps. And that's a great resource. We're glad it's there. But definitely thank you all for being so patient when we were kind of going off a little bit on a tangent. And then Oscar, thank you very much for today.
My pleasure. Jade, you wanted to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, great job. I had been chatting a little bit about future sessions and, looking at future dates. It seems like everybody agrees Friday is a good day for this. So just because we have everybody kind of here, just look for, at least one Friday in December and probably a couple in January when we'll follow up. We'll probably maybe do it both ways, where we'll do once where we just repeat this session for people that kind of like this format but need to hear it more than one time. And then we'll do a couple shorter, more compact, more basics focused sessions as well based on some of the feedback. I think we just want to do it a couple times both ways and really just focus on basics based on what everybody's been telling me. So thanks again.
That is great. Thank you, Jade. And yes, in addition to what Jay said, in addition to what Janice said, please feel free to, contact us at tech support at CASAS.org. We're there for any questions that, are presented. We have many tools. One of the tools we use is Fast Support, which is basically connecting to your computer remotely. So this is just as if we are right next to you, taking over the mouse, showing you right on your screen. We're seeing what you're seeing. It's a very helpful tool. We're there to assist with any, whether this is a follow-up question from this training or this is an entirely new question that it just came to you. We're there for any assistance. All right, so if we do not have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this, training. We thank you very much for attending, and please look forward to any other upcoming trainings. Thank you very much.
Oscar,
and happy Thanksgiving. Yes.
Can you stop recording before you stop the meeting? That way and if anyone wants to keep a copy of what's in the chat box, you might notice that there's the 3 little dots next to the to everyone, and you can click on the 3 dots and say save chat. And that way you'll have a copy on your hard disk of all the information that we put into the chat.
Oh, thank you for
Very
that.
good. Thank you. Okay, I just stopped the recording. Do you want to stop cloud recording? Yes.